Here's a great story that talks about subscription services and how the things that make a subscription great for a business are the same things that a business has to deal with in terms of the downside of having a subscription business as well. So to set this up, the story in the Wall Street Journal today talks about how 1 in 5 individuals or 1 in 5 subscribers to premium services, so think Netflix, Hulu, Apple TV+, HBO Max, Disney+, canceled 3 or more subscriptions in the last 2 years. And so that is kind of an incremental increase over the 2-year stretch before that. And it shows kind of, one, I think the point of the story, of course, talks to inflation and we're in an environment now where people are starting to penny pinch. There's a great quote from an individual here that says, you've got to trim the pennies. It's like a diet, You take a couple calories off here and there, and it makes a difference. Why give them money if I'm not watching, is what this individual says in the article. And, I'm a big believer that subscriptions are great for businesses. I think they're interesting from a valuation standpoint in terms of the multiple that both public and private companies get as a function of having locked in recurring revenue. But I think this dynamic here speaks to the downside of having a subscription service, which is you have to continue to provide enormous value within the kind of verticals that the consumer is looking for in order to keep things going. Otherwise, in any kind of environment where people are looking to cut costs or trim costs a little bit, the first thing that goes is subscriptions. Anecdotally, one of our clients at Daggerfinn is a company that does a lot of layoff support, reduction in force support. And, there has been a noticeable uptick in companies asking for help when it comes to layoff support in the subscription space. And so going back to the point about continually adding value. So I've always been of the thought that you subscribe to these channels or these premium services because you want to watch maybe one show or one documentary series or something, and then it becomes the task of the platform to try and engage you further. One thing that I've found over time is that I like to watch a certain documentary on Netflix, and then, or a certain style of documentary. Typically it's like true crime or something, and then nothing will come out for a month or two, and that's, then I just don't engage with Netflix for a month or two. And you can kind of see in that world where, I'm privileged in that I don't have to think about it in terms of nickel and diming. But if I wasn't using Netflix and I didn't have the resource to continue spending on a premium service, that'd be the first thing to go. Absolutely. I completely relate to that or empathize with that. And so there are certain kinds of companies that really benefit from a subscription service. It surprises me that more breakfast shops don't do kind of what Panera Bread with their coffee subscription. It surprises me that, Starbucks, granted, they've got such a great rewards or a platform that they maybe you're hooked anyway without having to do the subscription service. But there are loads of businesses out there that provide enough value on a more recurring basis that should make their businesses subscription as opposed to transactional. But that's really a story for another day. One thing I wanted to talk about too was kind of the economics of a subscription model, and why you really see the fluctuations in the stock market when it comes to these premium businesses, especially as it relates to kind of Netflix and Disney Plus and things like that, and why you see their market caps get slashed by 20, 30, 40% whenever there's a decline in subscribers. And that's because their unit economics are such that they have to have enormous scale, because that $10, $15 a month that you pay really isn't enough to justify the billions and billions that they spend on content. The best subscriptions and the most steady subscriptions over time, think kind of insurance, think things like that. The way that they make things work is that you pay a fee up front, And what that upfront fee does is it captures some form or some level of the marginal cost of delivering that service to the consumer. And then you can then use the subscription or the monthly recurring part as kind of a padding that builds in, or that kind of starts to bake in your profit. What is great about these services for the consumer, Disney Plus and Netflix or Hulu, is that you pay this kind of nominal fee each month. And what Netflix and these premium services are banking on is that you stay on their platform long enough that they can capture the cost of delivering the service to you, the marginal cost, plus something on top of that. And it takes a long time if you think of think of the value that you get from Netflix, for example. Like how much it costs for them to shoot I don't know, or create like a Making a Murderer documentary or an Umbrella Academy TV show, or any of the others that people watch. I mean, it costs, lots and lots of money. And your $10 a month is really kind of just chipping at that tiny bit. So you've got to enable huge scale in order to capture the economics of that. Which is why when you see these drop off in subscribers, their market caps, the markets kind of really hit them hard, because they know that the profitability and cash flow over a long time is kind of based on how long people can stay on. So if they're starting to see people cancel or cut their services, the unit economics stop working, which is why you're starting to see Netflix talk about kind of an ad-driven model, like a cheaper but ad-enabled version of their service. You're starting to hear about Disney Plus wanting to increase the price of their subscription. You're starting to see all these companies deal with the headwinds that they're dealing with, that they weren't dealing with maybe 24 months ago, when everybody was kind of loaded with cash and there's money floating around the system, and everybody is kind of spend happy. You're starting, these kind of businesses do very well in those times because everybody has disposable income. When these businesses face economic headwinds like they are starting to face now, is when you start to see them play with the economics of delivering the service. Cheaper but ad-driven. The ads then are a way to cover marginal costs, or the fixed costs of delivering the service to you. Disney Plus doing the same thing with the price increase. So it's just an interesting world, subscription businesses. It's an interesting place to think about business and what works and what doesn't work. The number of subscribers and people canceling services is a headwind that we're going to continue to see these businesses face going forward. It's going to be interesting to see which of these platforms survives. I think also another thing with the cancellations is that it's showing you that there's space in the market there for somebody who can capture your attention longer, provide a little bit more value than just kind of the momentary entertainment. And so that's going to be interesting to see who figures that kind of part of the pie out. And it just fascinating place to see, because my mind is going to Peloton right now and kind of seeing what's happened to their share price and the kind of business decisions and the strategies that they've had to come up with to deal with their falling market cap, falling revenues. And they, that was a business that is kind of an anecdote or a benchmark of what happens to a subscription business when you grow too quickly or you don't bake in unit economics properly, and the market falls away, and you're kind of left holding the pieces of what you thought was a sustainable business, but now you've got to make really serious moves to sort out kind of cash flow and profitability. So keep an eye on this space, the streaming entertainment, premium entertainment, because I think there's going to be a lot of experimentation with business models and experimentation with things like probably pay-per-view and things like that over the next, 12 months or so as the US, but really the world, deals with these economic headwinds that we're dealing with.